If you have found this video, there is a chance someone close to you have passed away, and you're looking for answers to the most important questions in life. Why do we die? How can we deal with death? Does our loved one still exist? And if she or he does, what is their current mental state? Death is the most impartial and inevitable occurrences of life. It is impartial because it doesn't choose the rich from the poor, the healthy from the ill. It doesn't choose the royal from the ordinary individual, the celebrity from the obscure person. When death arrives, it takes anyone. It is also inevitable because it doesn't matter how much we try to prolong life. We will all die one day. In addition to the impartiality and inevitability of death, historically we've treated death with so much gloominess that it has become a moment of terror and horror for most of us. There are few explanations for this kind of reaction towards death. First, if you are an atheist, consequently, you don't believe in life after death, which means that your loved one who just passed away will never be seen again. That was it. It is over. It is very hard to think of anything else that will bring more despair to a person than the certainty that the loved one who you cherish the most ceased to exist. And now, after all you have lived, the experiences and the wonderful moments you shared, mounted to this inevitable end, there is nothing left for you to do besides contemplate the somber fact that your loved one is now just food for the worms. Second, if you have a belief system based on traditional religion, chances are that you have heard such lame descriptions of the afterlife that your logic usually repels such explanations. As a result, you're left with uncertainty of the future of your loved one, and that uncertainty produces despair as well. You feel that there is no reason to go on, that your life should have been taken away as well. This kind of thinking suggests that your faith does not serve you, because when you need it the most, in crucial moments that we all have to go through, instead of comprehension, which soothes the pain, you're left with shallow explanations, which lead you to hopelessness and intensifies your suffering. What if there was another explanation to death, which is based on sound logic and reasoning, and it is in accordance with our notion of a loving creator? Wouldn't that information bring you comfort and also would help you cope with your current situation? What if there was such a body of knowledge that not only makes us understand death in a very consoling manner, but also can teach us to intervene on behalf of our loved one who departed? Is there such a body of knowledge? Yes, there is. And it's called Spiritist philosophy or Spiritism. Spiritism explains that what we call death is not the end of life, but the beginning of a new cycle. The individual who we loved did not cease to exist, but rather have left the shell we call the body. The person is not the body, but instead was inside the body. And once the machine stopped working, it liberated the person, the individual who she or he was. The terms used to describe these phenomena are incarnate for someone who is in the body, and discarnate for someone who left the body. Our logical minds have a hard time accepting such realities because the person who died is not perceived anymore by our regular senses. But is it true that what we don't see, it doesn't exist? Aren't we surrounded by physical phenomena that take place in our everyday life, which although we don't see it, we know it exists? Take, for example, how TVs, radios, cell phones work. If it wasn't for electromagnetic waves, none of these gadgets would be possible. So, when was the last time you've seen an electromagnetic wave? Never. It's invisible to your eyes. What about the sunglasses that you use? Aren't they protecting you from UV rays? When was the last time you've seen an UV ray? Never. What about gravity? Are we all at this time being pulled to the center of the earth by it? Do you see it? No, you don't. But you feel its presence, and we cannot run away from its influence. For electromagnetic waves, gravity, and UV rays, just to name a few, scientists need special instruments to detect their presence because they all are invisible to our senses. The same principle applies to the existence of spirits. To detect the presence of spirits, you have to use your mediumship. The mediumship is one of our senses that we rarely are aware of its existence, but we all make use of it, albeit in different degrees. Some people's mediumship are feebly developed, others are amply developed. For those whose mediumship is poorly developed, their perception of the spirit world is very limited. They can sense the presence of spirits, but not much else. But for those whose mediumship is highly developed, they can see, hear, and even talk with spirits. They are called mediums. All throughout history, mediums have existed and have served as a doorway of communication with those who have passed to the other side. Unfortunately, there are many mediums who abuse this ability in order to make a profit. And instead of helping bring forth the knowledge of the spiritual world, they create skepticism, because most often, whenever money is involved in activities that are associated with religious practices, there is a tendency to reject and deny it. But that doesn't mean that spirits don't exist. They do exist. As a matter of fact, through the mediumistic communications, the spirits demonstrate to maintain their identity. In other words, they don't change from who they were, which means that if they loved you, there are no reasons for them not to continue to love you. As a matter of fact, it is the strong feeling that keeps you connected, although you are physically apart from one another. Spiritism explains that we can still communicate with them through our thoughts. When you think of a loved one who departed, it is the same way as you place a one-way phone call to them. They can hear you, they can feel you, even though you cannot clearly understand their answer. Another way that you can communicate with those who passed to the hereafter is through dreams. When we go to sleep, our body releases, and we in the spirit world visit them and have lengthy conversations. When you wake up, although you don't remember specific details of the conversation, you retain the certainty to have been with them. You feel lighter and happier, even though you miss them intensely. So, if you have someone who has completed their journey of earthly life and had to be transferred to the other side, dismiss the ill thoughts of despair and be hopeful that not only you can still communicate with them, but we will all be together again. Life does not cease with death. It's an inevitable natural process that we must go through. Spiritism proves, not as a matter of faith, but by countless accounts of those who find themselves on the afterlife. The knowledge that Spiritism provides gives us hope and strength to continue on with our daily struggles. And our change of perception about death help those who need to continue with their journey on the other side. Our comprehension of life helps them, while our despair makes their afterlife very hard. Allow me to tell you a story about a mom who deeply missed her 8-year-old boy. After he passed away, she cried daily out of despair. She did not change his room. She kept all his toys, waited for him to get back from school as if nothing happened. And she didn't pay attention to her other children either. This state of despair hurt her son deeply because he couldn't move on with his growth while he suffered much for feeling his mother's pain. So one day, with the help of his spiritual guide, they decided to show her a strong image that would speak to her way of understanding the afterlife. They waited for her to fall asleep, and then the spiritual guide removed her from her body and took her to a place on the spiritual plane. Upon arriving, she was perplexed with the beauty everywhere. But what delighted her most was that she saw many children playing while they were floating in the air. Needless to say that she was looking for her son amongst these children, but she didn't find him. So she became upset and tearful. Over the sudden, her son showed up, but instead of flying, he was walking as if he was being dragged towards her. He didn't look happy, and she immediately ran to him and asked him, "My son, why are you so sad? Why are you not playing with the other kids?" And he said, "Mommy, I can feel your sadness. I hear you crying every day so often that your tears are falling upon my body, and because of that, I feel so heavy that I don't have the strength to fly and play with my friends." The mother had an insight. She finally understood that her despair was not helping her son at all. She comprehended that she was being unconsciously selfish, thinking only about her pain, not considering the fact that her agony was hurting her son as well as her other kids who needed her attention. After she woke up, she decided to change her son's room. She donated all his clothing and toys so all the children could make good use of them. Although she continued to miss her son, she avoided despair and concentrated in loving the other children who starved for her love. One night, after feeling peaceful for knowing that she could still find happiness while loving her kids who remained behind, they said to her as if they knew what she was feeling, "Mommy, it's so great to have you back." On that same evening, after falling asleep, her spiritual guide took her to that same place where she first met her son on the spiritual world. But this time he was not walking. He was floating gracefully with his friends. Needless to say, that the image of her son floating in air was not necessarily true, but it was created by the highly evolved spirits to help her comprehend how her state of mind influenced her son's spiritual condition. Gladly, she regained her strength and peacefulness again. In the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec, with his innumerable logical arguments about life and death, bring about insights that the reader will determine that life is a beautiful journey that can't be missed. In it, you will find answers to the most intriguing questions of life. Who are we? Where we came from? And what is the meaning of life? Most importantly, where are we going? Through common sense and reasoning, you will conclude that your current life is nothing but a second amidst eternity, that your true life is the spiritual life, and that this existence is just one amongst many in a series of existences called reincarnations. You are enrolled in the school of life. So is your loved one who departed. He or she still exists, and the only difference is that they are continuing their growth process on the other side of our existence. You can still cry and miss them, but let your tears be fulfilled with happy memories, for they will bring you joy, as will also soothe the aching hearts of those who have departed and also misses you.